Hey everyone, welcome to Amazon Studios. I'm Hara Gavriadi and I'm here with my co-host Dwayne Brown.
Yeah, and I'm next to Hara this time. Thank you for having me, Hara.
My pleasure. And we are here with Peter Aitken from Kantar.
Pleasure to be here, thank you.
Welcome, Pete. Very excited to have you. Can you just tell us a little bit about?
I think Pete should introduce himself and let us know.
Yeah.
Great. Well, so I look after customer strategy for Kantar in the UK. Kantar, for people who don't know who Kantar are, we're the market-leading brand marketing and customer experience research and consulting business. And our work focuses on trying to understand how customers perceive the brands that they buy from, or perhaps don't buy from, the experiences that they have, and then helping those businesses work out where they target investment for growth.
And you two know each other?
Yeah, so we worked together back at Accenture for 4 years, probably, maybe 5 years ago. It was good times.
It's 9 years ago.
9 years ago?
9 years ago.
Oh, it was pre-pandemic. It's that time hole.
9 years ago, and yeah, we met at my first, that was our happiest, most favorite project together.
Great project.
Yeah, it was like good times, and I think from that project we have made some good friendships over the years. Yeah. So yeah, good to have you. Yeah, it's
I don't feel jealous at all. By the way.
You should be. You should be. All right, I'm going to just jump right in.
Great, let's go.
And I just wanted to focus a little bit on the latest research from Forrester.
Yes.
Where the results reveal that the customer perceptions for customer experience quality are dropping significantly. I think for the last 3 years across most of the industries in the United States. And at the same time, the UK Customer Satisfaction Index is echoing similar sentiments. So I wanted to discuss what is behind that, what can be behind that, and appreciate there are many things like the current economic climate, increasing customer expectations, preference and needs, or it may be something entirely different.
Yeah, I always felt like, in some instances, customer satisfaction at that larger scale is like a moving goalpost because the expectations of customers keep rising. Yeah. Even though the investment in CX, have changed or the context have changed. So.
Yeah, there will always be new innovators coming into the market to, shuffle the deck of cards to reset the playing field of what makes great customer experience. And whether you're thinking about your telco provider, you're still comparing them and the app experience to the experience you might have from a fintech bank. So when new providers come onto the scene, they don't just affect the expectations for that category, they affect the expectations more broadly. And so perhaps what we're seeing a little bit in those numbers is a shift in expectations for what great customer experience could be. And also a shift in expectations of the potential for great experience. So people are seeing things like generative AI coming in, and they're maybe not necessarily seeing that executed when they're talking to a chatbot. So I think certainly a shift in expectations is probably part of that. Yeah. And you said as well the economic climate. I think that general customer happiness at any given time will always play into perceptions of the experiences they're getting from partners as well. So, there's probably a number of quite complex drivers going in there. But I think on the whole, customers are, on average, have slightly higher expectations of what great customer service looks like.
But does that challenge the notion of brand expectations linked to customer expectations? Is it broken? Is it the same?
Yeah. So what we find is overall, when we look at how perceptions of brands are formed, around about 25% comes from paid media. So the remaining 75% comes from everything else. Mm-hmm. And of that, you've got things like influencers, you've got news coverage, and when you break it down, in many industries, financial services, for example, it's about 58% of the total perception of a bank is formed by your experiences with that bank. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the brand perception overall is coming down. If customers are starting to feel that in financial services or with a telco provider or automotive manufacturer, that there's a level of inertia or stasis, nothing's really changing within that category. If a new disruptor comes in, that's a real opportunity for that business to build their brand through having an experience that's really differentiated from the rest of the category. So it doesn't necessarily mean that overall brand strength is going to be dropping as a whole, but it creates an opportunity for brands to actually, our experience is what makes us really different, and we're going to double down on that.
You talk about disruptors coming in, right? And I've been thinking about technology. You talk about generative AI or chatbots. So we've seen, and I'm going to state the obvious. You will not like it, but I'm going to say the obvious that Amazon, Apple, right, or Netflix, they have gone through a brand transformation based on the technology transformation, right? So Amazon starting from a bookstore, e-commerce, now cloud computing, right?
Yes.
Apple was like a computer manufacturer. Now, what I feel like is more like a lifestyle brand.
Yes.
And Netflix, most probably, I'm just waiting for Sunday evening to have takeaway and Netflix. I will not even say what's a movie. I will say Netflix, right? And what comes to mind for me, a great example is also Disney, where Disney is the traditional animation entertainment brand. However, through the theme parks, right, they have augmented reality, they have virtual reality, and through the app, actually, they have the location tracker where you have a more personalized experience depending where you are in the theme park. You know where you are, you know what is coming, and you can create your own adventure if it makes sense. And Dwayne and I will use this in some of our engagements at best in class, right? So that's my question, right? Does technology transformation also leads to brand transformation?
Absolutely. So much of the customers' perceptions of a brand is ultimately created by great technology execution, or rather a great combination of technology and people.
Right.
So first, when we think about what makes customer experience great, typically a huge part of it is often a physical experience. It's an experience in a store with people. Even you think about the Uber, yes, the app is amazing, and when you could see that little car coming towards, a magical moment. But when the experience would be dreadful if you got into the car and the person driving you is not a very nice person. So what these brands are really good at doing is blending both technology and people. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing, though, is that so much of a strong brand is founded on a great product, and so many great products. Netflix is a really good example. Netflix has to be able to tailor this kinds of recommendations for shows that it's going to put to you. So technology is a fundamental part of making that successful. Apple is another great example. It's great because of its technology and its design. So if you can get technology right, that will get you a long way to growing your brand, absolutely. But in order to make that really successful, it's about ultimately integrating it with, your people, whether they're in product design, customer service delivery, marketing, and that's where success comes from.
Pete, I want us to go right back. I don't want us to make any assumptions in the kind of assumed knowledge of the audience, right? So, give us a sense of like the practitioners that you're working with. The researchers, the people who actually get representative samples from the public, panels. Give us a sense of what that's like to be in a kind of research and insights driven field. Yeah,
so customer experience in Kantar, probably the majority of our business is collecting real-time feedback from customers who've just been in a store, on a website, through a contact center, on their app. Any touch point, that customer will have had an experience and a reaction, positive, negative, or entirely neutral. And so what you're trying to do through that is you're trying to do a couple of things. One is capture feedback from those people and understand how could you improve that part of the experience, optimize parts of it, but also how is that experience making the brand feel different? How is that experience making the brand feel like it stands out from others in the category? So what we would do is capture feedback, but also just capture data and signals from customers after they've been through an interaction. And then we often put that through technology platforms. Medallia and Qualitative are our two main technology partners. And those are incredibly powerful platforms that put the data from those interactions into the hands of store managers, contact center teams, product development teams so that they can work out what a customer's saying and what do we do differently. So it's very, very real time, and it means that you can very quickly, you can take an individual store, you can do something different in that store, and after a couple of weeks you'll have had plenty of feedback to see actually how's that new store redesign worked, and should we roll that out across the rest of our estate.
So it's qual and quant combined?
Absolutely,
Gotcha.
yeah. And you've got to make sure you're collecting a combination of qualitative feedback, so real voice of the customer, so you understand exactly how did they feel about a particular interaction. That's incredibly valuable. But often, the brand wants to be able, or the store wants to be able to benchmark itself against the rest of the estate. So you're capturing quantitative data to work out, are our trust scores or our effectiveness or ease scores, or is our feeling of difference in this store, is it going up, is it going down?
I always wondered about, so for brands that are like interaction, so I think about some cinemas, for example.
Yes.
How are they kind of like, how do they understand how they can improve the experience of people who actually go to the cinema and watch the thing?
Yes.
Because there's always these kind of like smelly faces at the door, right?
Yeah.
But then everything before that, after that, is a blank spot. Is there things that you can do? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got a big question like that, you've got a cinema, cinema provider who says, how do we innovate in our cinemas on our sites? How are people experiencing our sites? You probably want to use a combination of qualitative and quantitative. There'll be things that your quantitative data will never tell you, that actually you need to do either take an ethnographic approach where you follow people in there, or have experts who are used to different types of stores, who can have a fresh pair of eyes when they walk through. But you need to have a level of insight, and an insight is when you see something that gives you an idea, and whether it's the data that generates the insight or whether it's qualitative feedback. But qualitative feedback, the real lived-in experience, is incredibly valuable for understanding, for gathering that insight and understanding really what's the nature of what's going on, where should we improve.
I had a feeling that, I'm very glad that you say that, the combination of qualitative and quantitative, because I had a feeling that within the organizations, like brands, different teams may use different types of insights of data, right? I feel that customer experience teams may lean more on insights like qualitative research, where the tech teams can lean more on quantitative, right? On data. And my personal opinion, and what I've seen from the customers that are doing very well in the space, is where they combine both.
Yes.
But we don't see a lot of that, though. It might, tell me keep me honest here, right? But I feel like there's a heavier focus on quant, on census, and like the data kind of volumes of it. I mean, is it just where I'm sat?
It might be. So at Kantar, we've got a qualitative business which is growing every year. Customers, it's an incredibly strong group of people who really understand the nature of customer behaviour.
Gotcha.
And it's a huge part of what we do. So I haven't seen the demand for that necessarily disappearing.
Gotcha.
Businesses still want to understand the nature of what's going on. But I think you make a really good point about product design teams. Absolutely, they want to be able to say, actually, how are people interacting with our website or this new thing that we've created? And they want to see how that changes over time when they launch new features. And the quantitative data gives the real world behavioural feedback of actually how is it landing out in the wild. And so that's always going to be incredibly valuable, and the ability to capture that data is much, much greater than it was certainly 10 years ago. So the proliferation, the availability of that data does absolutely mean that quantitative data is more, should be or could be more used in an organisation.
I'll tell you why I say that. So you talk to customers week on week, and I say, well, actually, if you run an ethnographic study and you understand how customers are engaging with the left and right. I said it multiple times. Hara probably is annoyed at my broken record, but then you use that as a way to then understand like the broader base and get into this audience extrapolation concept.
Yeah.
Then you get to inform all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you get to understand kind of broader insights and manage the costs associated with those insights.
Yes.
But is this a techno geeky thing that I'm kind of dreaming up, or like how real is that?
So how that might look so there's a retail that we're working with, household name, and we've just going in for an award. So we're doing our award submission and our judges presentation next week. So I can talk with a degree of detail about it. So with that program, the first challenge they had was in their digital experience, trying to work out how do we make our digital experience ultimately more effective, more efficient, drive more conversion. That was challenge number one. And they tried a number of different things based on their perspective of the site. It hadn't quite worked. So the first thing that we did was we used Medallia, voice of the customer technology, to understand how are people, what are the general areas of the website which need to be improved, and what would the incremental benefit be from working on the checkout or the search and navigation or whatever the area is. So that helped us firstly to work out the areas of focus. But the extrapolation point comes in when you use technology that allows you to track session behavior. So when you're starting to understand, actually, okay, we've heard something about search and navigation, and when you read search and navigation, I couldn't find what I needed on the website. The navigation was really difficult. Might be a piece of feedback that might come. The qualitative feedback that you can get could be from watching that person's session and realizing it's not the nav bar at the top. Actually, I couldn't find the information on the website. The page itself was difficult to navigate. So that helps the business then say, well, we have a hypothesis, or they might start with a hypothesis, navigation is wrong. Then you can validate that with your session data, and then you can create a series of tests for different ways that you could improve that, and then you can launch those tests onto the website, see how different people behave, and then ultimately pick the one that's leading to the best conversion. So that's how I think you can take a qualitative piece of customer data, their session behavior and multiple session behaviors, create a series of tests, extrapolate that, and then get real data on how that's actually landed with your customer base. And
is this the normal, like that companies are doing that, or is this an outlier? I guess I'm asking because what we've seen is that the customer experience teams most of the time sit on the operational side. You talk about data from contact center, right? Which is the voice of the customer, conversations that the customers have with you, and most probably there are frustrations, there are issues there. And actually, we spoke to many customers of ours, and the main question I ask is, do you share this data, this information with other departments? Can inform sales, can inform product development? So the example you just shared, is an outlier?
So I think activities like that, I would say, aren't necessarily outliers. You've got a lot. I mean, the people at Kantar are a fantastic group of people, and there are fantastic people in businesses everywhere doing similar great things. The challenge that we often see is exactly kind of what you're getting to there. Is while they're doing great things in their pillar, in their area, in some organizations, often where the organization isn't necessarily set up right, where you've got the right sort of org design so that democratization and sharing of data can happen. But you do sometimes see that people have been given a customer experience feedback management program. It takes up their whole day job. They sit in a specific part of the business, and really it's not their job to start thinking about, well, this data could be really valuable for product development or marketing or whoever. So they don't necessarily step outside of their lane, because it's not their job to go and start thinking, what are the other applications for this? So you really need a combination of leadership impetus and sponsorship in order to say, we've invested millions of pounds in this program, potentially. This should be having wider enterprise value for driving improvement across further up parts of the organization. This is your responsibility, go make it happen. So that's often the challenge. The advancements in feedback management technology has made it a role in itself, and a role in itself sits in a part of the business and can often end up in a small corner. So trying to bring it out of that corner and make sure that those people are able to impact and drive benefit for the wider business is I think part of the next leap that a lot of businesses are now trying to get to.
I'll tell you a story. So I used to head up analytics at EE back when it was an independent brand, and so Olaf Swanty, who was CEO at the time, I think he got us all bought into transforming the business through MPS. Remember, it's a brand new entry, brand new telecom business, just launched 2012, got 3 brands underneath the hood, very confusing. and we wanted to be like front and center on service and performance and all these wonderful things. And we made NPS the bonusing structure to put in the way that we get our bonuses, and then everybody went
yes
on the thing, right? And then you saw the change, right? But equally, then you got people really angry at different, teams if the NPS was down because it brought down bonuses for everybody. Yeah. But at least you got momentum.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's frightening. I look at some brands that we use every day. If you're not in a goal status, the journey stays broken for you for months.
Potentially, yeah.
Right. The many airlines, for example, that I will not call, if you try to book or do something with them, last September, it is still broken this September. Yes. So, and I'm sure they're working with all of the, wonderful, insights teams and different insights companies. What is your view on why that is still that way?
Yeah. I think energy is a great example. Energy providers, most of the customer experience happens or the customers who feel the experience of that energy provider the most are often people who are more sensitive to financial pressures. So for example, if their bill goes up, they'll notice that their bill's gone up and they'll want to pick up the phone and call up, or they'll be looking at their app and monitoring their usage to a greater degree than someone who may have more disposable income. And if their bill fluctuates, you're aware of it, but it's not massively impacting you as a person in your day-to-day life. Right. And if you're on a top-up meter, if you don't have enough money to pay, you've got to go through a series of steps to top up your energy. But also, there's much greater peril that if you don't top it up and then you go on holiday for 2 weeks and you come back and your energy switched off, you lose everything in the fridge. So the reality of customer experience for people who are not gold members of an airline is more perilous, let's say. So companies have to make sure that the experience that they create or that they're able to deliver serves everybody, but those people who feel the experience more often, people might say the more demanding customers, are the ones who are more likely to ultimately drive down your score. Yeah. And so as an organization, you have to make sure that you're catering to those and you're designing an experience that's effective for those as well, because they're still a huge part of your customer base, but recognizing that your higher value customers may be easier to please to some degree, or at least they're less hit by the shocks of your bill or the experience. But you've still got to make sure that both of your all your customer segments are treated well and are providing a great experience. Because if they have a poor if your more sensitive customers are experiencing your brand in a more negative way, they'll certainly talk about you on social media, and that will get into the news, and then that means that your higher value customers will start to think, actually, I'm not sure I like whoever the brand might be.
I want to touch on two things that you said. One is NPS, and I'll touch about the gold one in a bit. NPS, like Net Promoter Score. I've heard this three words, like the last week 4 or 5 times in 4 different conversations I had with customers, even with different teams within our organization. So some may think that is the holy grail of all the metrics, right, in customer experience, and others may argue that is oversimplified. Any takes on this?
I think
that's big time, isn't it?
That's a big question. I think the introduction of NPS did great things for the customer experience industry. I think you go way back into the 60s, people were measuring customer satisfaction, almost the effectiveness of a process. But NPS came in and it sort of switched it on its head, and it said, well, actually, our brand will grow if we can create advocates, because advocates will talk about our brand and that'll bring more people into the brand. And the power of NPS, when it particularly around about 15 years ago, when organizations started to adopt it in their board metrics, suddenly put customer experience and advocacy, and recognizing that customer experience is linked to growth, that became part of the board agenda. So that as an advancement, tremendous, absolutely tremendous. I think the issue comes in when people start to apply it into the business in a way that it's not being designed for. So the way that the system has been set out, people will take their own approach on it, and then like you start to get other issues where it becomes the bonus metric, the be all and end all of the organization. Individuals in stores start getting targeted on it, and that drives certain behaviors.
So that's how that story ends, is that you get it being used as a way to understand how people were using the experience. But I think people start to get all muddled up with how they felt about EE or Orange or T-Mobile as they interacted.
Yeah.
So I think the clever people I worked with at the time came up with this idea, I think it's from BT actually, to measure the interactions using something called NetEasy. And then separate the brand interactions and the kind of overall satisfaction with NPS. So you had this split between how I feel about the thing I just did versus how I feel about the brand.
Exactly. And that's how we would typically apply NPS. You would be asking at what's called a relationship level. So this is, I might ask you, Hara, Dwayne, I might say, thinking about EE as a brand, how likely are you to recommend this brand to other people? But then underneath that, you may ask certain questions to understand the kinds of interactions that you've had with it. So you're not asking NPS immediately after a fairly inconsequential interaction where you just wanted to, check on your bill. Or I've seen one bank that will send an NPS survey after you've paid some money into a cash deposit machine. So it will get applied in those kinds of ways, and you can entirely see why people apply it in those ways, because they're trying to roll up every interaction to overall the impact on a total NPS score, and it allows you to say, well, this is driving our NPS score up and down. But the issue is, though, exactly that. How can you make a recommendation on a business, even after you've perhaps just bought something online? You haven't got the product home, you haven't used it, and there's lots more to happen in the journey that would really determine whether you like to recommend. So I agree it has limitations, and what we would say at Kantar, similar to what you're looking at there with EE and NetEasy score, is we'd say you want to understand two things at a relationship level, but it can also be applied at a transactional in the moment level. Did it meet your needs? We use that term meaningful. So was the experience effective? Did it work? Was it easy? Is one. Did it build a trust in the brand? But ultimately, did it meet your needs? Satisfaction is quite a proxy. And second, try and understand the impact that interaction has had in your perception that the brand is different from other providers out there. So you were saying at the beginning about how fintechs have changed the expectation of what it is to use an app. So what you're trying to understand from a customer's point of view is, did they feel that interaction made the brand feel different? So people don't tend to do that, but that's a good way of saying, did it work? Was it meaningful? But also, did this interaction contribute to the overall perceptions of the brand? Did it make the brand stand out as different? And then by combining those two things, that helps you to work out, was your experience meaningfully different? Did it have a contribution to the overall brand perceptions?
So you look at the end-to-end holistic experience, not after, as you said, after a purchase, or after I made a complaint, or after I actually contacted customer care for an event, because this is where we typically measure this. But this doesn't give us the end-to-end pre-purchase, like after purchase, and how I actually interact with this. It's like a product or a service or whatever it is.
Yeah, and understanding at a transactional level will give you much, much more depth in the moment reaction to that specific experience. And that's where it's so vital for brands to be able to hear what customers are saying, getting some verbatim qualitative feedback at the time to kind of guide where they fix. So that combination of meaningfulness and difference is, understand that's really important.
I'll tell you another story. So, music is an important part of our household. So we got these speakers, one in the brand, and their sole job is to get us up in the morning and get us in the groove.
Great.
Right. Ready for work and ready to be productive. And I think someone at the company, their product development team, they want to develop the app. And wouldn't you believe it, they dropped the alarm feature. The alarm feature P. All right. Believe it. This thing doesn't work anymore. Doesn't wake up at 6:30 in the morning.
Very upset to it.
And I believe, this is my theory, I think that very clever team, they went, all right, from an interaction standpoint, again, census, this thing isn't being used.
Yeah.
Right? And if they'd look at how it was being used, the context of like, you know, in people's daily life, if they were observing people, they'd see, well, actually, it's being used every day. People don't use an alarm by pressing it every day. It just kicks in.
I mean, I think these are the issues where you have an over reliance on quantitative data, but you read the signals in the wrong way, and that's a great example of someone or a development team who's saying, well, no one's using this feature, but yeah, exactly. Once you set your alarm, you don't change it every single day. It just sits there and lives. So that's an example of where by entirely focusing on the quantitative data and not really understanding how people interact with your products and services, you can miss the full picture.
There's lots of big brands that made that mistake, right?
Is it back? Is the alarm button
It
back?
is not.
And what did you do? Did you actually put something back? Did you contact anybody? Does this company have a way to capture the voice of the customer for that?
They do, generally. It went nowhere. It's 5-6 months now.
Seriously?
Which is the reason why I asked you, if you think about how long experiences stay broken.
Yeah, it takes a while to fix.
It takes a while to fix. Even for your lovely airline.
He keeps talking about the airline.
You've got to share the story.
And I have a story for that. I'm a top tier customer, like a loyal customer of that particular airline. I travel a lot back to my homeland. I travel a lot for work. So I have...
I'm not holding it against you.
I mean, it looks like that. But what's happened is in my recent trip back home.
Yeah.
So normally I take like a bag full of gifts.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm going to have a nice cube machine with me.
Lovely.
So I went to the check-in kiosk. I check in my bags, two bags. I asked, actually, I have a nice cube machine. Is it going to be fine? They reassured me it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Went through my elite check-in security. And then I'm on the other side. I landed. I'm waiting to pick up my bags. First bag with my clothes and stuff there. Second bag, my gift bag, nowhere.
Yeah.
Nowhere to be seen. During summer, it's a seasonal airport. It's a very small airport. So it took me 30 minutes to find someone to speak to understand what's happening. Imagine I'm a top tier customer, right? After I found someone, I had to fill a paper form with my details and stuff. Again, they reassured me I'm going to have my bag, do not worry.
Yeah.
After I filled the paper form, I got a text message saying we got your request, and then nothing.
Yeah.
For 2 days, nothing. No updates. I have an app. No messages. They have all the details, right? I travel a lot. 2 days later, they gave me a call, say, oh, we found your bag. We're going to deliver to your temporary address. Great.
Yeah.
They sent it to me. I opened the bag. My ice cream machine, nowhere. However, I found a document. I have a note saying there was a prohibited item in the bag. You can pick it up from the airport you fly from within 60 days, else it's going to be there. Again, no messages, nothing.
Dangerous items, ice cream makers.
And I'm a loyal top tier customer. I expect certain, communication. I will expect something on the app or on...
Imagine what would have happened to us, Pete.
I know. Our bag would have just been burned. Just thrown off the side of the...
So that was my latest experience.
I like how they left you like breadcrumbs of like notes. Like they discover like where your thing is. Like when you open this bag and then you go to the next thing.
So they just ruined all my Aperol spritzes and gin and tonics over summer. Right?
Such big plans. God.
Anyways, going back, I have a question. I mean, we've been discussing a lot about customer experience team, customer experience practitioners, and what the businesses should do that. Question again, some thoughts. What do you think that one thing that they should focus, these teams, CX practitioners or CX teams, in terms of providing that exceptional experience for their customers, but also for their employees, right? One thing that you will advise.
I think the simplest thing that they can do is take time to understand the customer journey, understand what customers are trying to achieve as they're going through that journey, and then understand what's the data that you could capture, whether it's behavioral data, whether it's feedback data, throughout the points of that experience that will help to shine a light on whether that experience has been firstly successful, what you need to do to improve, but how you're making that experience stand out as different. And what would have hopefully happened in a situation like this is understanding that the point when you're checking in, if the comms is wrong, or if people aren't sufficiently well trained to say what can be included or not included in baggage, that's something that could get fed straight to that team so they can improve it for next time. Those examples and things like that are not, they're not this. Not everybody travels through an airport with an ice cream maker, but things like this will happen at a reasonable level of regularity, so that should be something that can get fed to that team so they can do something different for next time. So I think making sure that you're capturing data from across the experience is probably the number one. And if I can add a 1.5, I'd say making sure that data is then available for the people who need it so they can make a difference.
I think teams aren't drilling down. So they failed you in a number of ways in that kind of end-to-end experience, kind of like from taking the flight onward, right? There were lots of like tension points for you, but no one has said, as far as I could tell, no one has said, okay, hang on, at this point, Hara and other persons like her, didn't get their baggage. Well, that means that this group is failed and this group has failed. And the airport that we partner with has also failed, and the people at the back getting the bags in the first place, so no one is drilling down. A lot of the times when they get it. And so to Pete's point, so the data is one thing, but the data tells you where the pain is. But then someone has got to go, okay, good. Okay, that connects to these teams, with these partners, with this sex, and this system sends at this time, and drill down. And then you fix the whole thing, right? Because if you just fix the top bit, how it looks, or that end experience, you might be missing a whole lot of like failures in terms of, back end that should work properly.
Yeah, getting to the root cause is really difficult, and it's often reliant on the feedback that you might have given, and you might not have mentioned that actually your expectations were set wrong at the point of check-in. You may your frustration may be, my bag didn't turn up and my ice cream maker was removed. But the actual root cause of it, you've got to track it all the way, exactly as you say, get right the way down to the bottom of what happened to say, well, actually, this is where it could have been addressed.
That's my problem with the customer support experiences that you get these days, right? Where they seem to be created for 80-70% of light touch questions and challenges that customers have got. But the deep rooted, the person that is, holding a baby right now with some poop on the call, trying to get something resolved, and is deep rooted, oh boy, that person is busted.
Yeah, real life is messy.
Real life is messy, you know what I mean? So you get there and they're trying to kind of get you down this pathway that's really based on some really simple light touch things. And the really heavy lifting things, you can't actually get to a person to kind of give them the explanation, or when you get to a chat, they don't have any context about you. So it frustrates you as a person seeking help.
You made me start thinking. So, because we talk about transformation of the experience, right? Getting the data, understanding the end and where was the initial cause, and drill down. So, what I'm thinking, are these customer experience transformations are still big projects, big programs? Is this still the case? Because I think a few years back we were talking about that. So how you can change that experience?
Being chunked up now, which is I think what excites me, because I think you get, and tell me what you think about this as well, Pete, but I think brands have now got to think about what's most important. Let me go fix that. Let me put a target team, fix the thing, drill down. That's done. Okay, good. Move on to the next thing, right? And if they want to fix two things at the same time, then they got to flex up and get two teams and do it and go for it, rather than these kind of mega beast transformation programs.
Yeah, I think in the current climate, a huge investment in a customer experience transformation program is perhaps more challenging to get through the board. There's a demand to drive commercial returns in the more short term, and being able to say, well, actually, we can fix and improve these parts of our experience is the most direct route for doing that. And exactly, I think, as you say, businesses are able to say, And across most organizations out there will be full of smart, keen people who want to do great things for their customers and the business as a whole. And so they're trying to work out what can we do to fix it, and they'll often have a very strong idea themselves about what needs to happen, and they'll be able to focus in as actually we need help on this specific thing. And so I think you get a lot more savviness on the part of businesses to work out actually we don't need to do an entire soup to nuts transformation. Actually what we need to focus on is this and this, and we think the impact on our NPS score or our commercials or our brand power will be X, and this is the amount we want to invest in that thing. So I think you've got a much greater level of clarity and specificity of what needs to be fixed in many organizations.
And even if you were to decide you're going to put it into a program of work, I think it's easier to sell the benefits. It's easy to say, okay, board, this is when you get your money back, because we kind of you realize some benefit in X month into delivering this one first, and then you get a next batch when you deliver this bit first. Just put some structure around there.
Start with your high value, top tier customers.
But it's hard, though. It's hard.
Okay, before we close our conversation, let's go into our quick fire round.
Okay.
And have two questions. And I'm going to change actually the order of the questions today, because I was thinking I want our podcast to end with the same question every time. Okay. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is chatbots.
Chatbots, great.
So are they primarily for business or for customers? Any takes?
Shall I go?
Go for it.
I mean, they're both. I mean, they're driven by often a business need to reduce contact center calls into the contact center, cost saving drive, quite often. But the impact for them really has a massive customer benefit, for a couple of reasons. One is, as a customer, you don't want to be calling up the contact center and spending 15 minutes on hold and getting bounced around. Anything that makes it easier to get your problem solved at a time that's convenient for you is a good thing. So chatbots, assisted chat. I took a flight, I had to cancel it at the last minute because me and my son were both ill, and I did most of it over, on the chat, and I'd have gladly stayed in the chat. But actually, the reason why I called up because the confirmation didn't come through. So, I would have been very, very happy for that to have been managed through a chat. And for a chatbot, a lot of the more simple interactions are, basic servicing. They do that so well. I think the issue though is that businesses can be complacent when they launch them. They can put them in, and often what we see is that you'll get a dip in your customer satisfaction for that channel. But if you take time, understand how people are using it, where you need to change it, where you should invest, you'll see an overall increase in satisfaction for it. So in one client that we work with in the Philippines, their chatbot, well actually their web chat and their chatbot has a higher level of satisfaction than their telephone channel. And you could argue, it's because of the kinds of interactions that they're getting in it, but it started out lower. So it takes persistence, iteration, optimization to really get it to that stage. And that for me is demonstration that customers like it, and it's a channel that serves customers well. I
think if you set I wholeheartedly agree with what you say. I think if you set and forget it, then it's really for you as a business. I think that's what our brands are doing. They're clearly just okay, good. Tell me the intents. Tell me the questions.
Bang.
Good.
Yeah. Fire and forget. Set and forget. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But then if you really think to people, if you provide escalation paths to people who are really in trouble, as I alluded to earlier, right? If you're thinking about how those things evolve over time, right? If you're finding ways to integrate it with the back end, so it's got the context, then it's a customer benefit. If you do those things. If you just leave it there, you're just gonna bugger off there.
Yeah, and I will add, the way I see it as well is there is always the machine and the human in collaboration, right? Where do you need to have an agent, a live person on the other side? Maybe because you need more empathy, right? Or you need that human touch to understand. And we see maybe in the insurance companies when they have to deal with specific claims, right? Yeah. For example, or where you need convenience, where actually you are in your bed, right? Because you're ill, and actually you're happily waiting there for the chat to cancel your flight or whatever. So I think there is there's a balance there, how you can get the human, the actual people bring the empathy and work with the technology for convenience, for efficiency, but also how you can bring that customer back to experience, right? To customer experience.
And exactly, and it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, that great customer experience is that combination of technology enabling humans to do great things.
Actually, he just gave me like the pass for my last question. So I would like to ask, what is the best, most delightful experience you've ever had, like you had recently?
Well, I'll keep on the theme of technology and human, or digital and physical, I suppose. Okay. You know, and it would be easy to call out, I talked about Uber and the magic of that little car coming. But actually, thinking about the more mundane, the more day-to-day, I bought a new house in the past couple of years, and there's always work to be done. So I'm in B&Q all the time. And what I love about that store, and other stores do it as well, is that before you go in, you can check if that, you know, length of wood or that power drill or whatever you want to buy, check if it's in stock, and you know exactly the aisle you need to go to. It's a massive store, so being able to enter the store and know actually it's going to be in here and it's on that aisle down there is a huge benefit. So on the app, when you can go and you can if you can pre-order, you can just have a look and see if it's there. Being able to then go and do that, and then to find more information on the app that isn't necessarily, you know, in the store itself, I think is a really valuable feature. So it's a quite a simple thing that they do, but it still requires the integration of that store in its inventory with the user experience and making it clear that makes a physical experience more effective.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make that work. We were dealing with a retailer recently, right, where like the link between stores, the brands that go in stores and the online, it was a whole mess. For sure. I think there's a good benefit for families as well, right? Because it's like, oh well, 300 baby problems at home. Should I really go to the store to get some DIY stuff? Yes or no? All right. And is it green? Good.
Yeah, exactly. And as a customer, you're reassured. As a customer, you're reassured that it's going to be there, and I know where I'm going to go. I'm not going to have to spend 30 minutes wandering around a store trying to find it. I know exactly where I need to go. With your 4 children in tow. I put them on the trolley quite often, and they're always knocking something off the side of it.
Or telling you that they want to leave immediately when you get in the store. I had to think about this one actually. I think that it's got to be. So I was with in-laws this summer in Italy, and the tire burst. You hear pop, and we get out. You got this Mike Tyson son outside, beating hot. You can see the ear bending in the distance, right? So we're like, oh, you know, exclusive, in trouble here, boy, middle of nowhere, right? Call the insurance company. They say, well, first things first, there's a service station. You can't see it. It's a 7-minute walk up that way. It's like, well, fantastic. You get some refreshments, fantastic. Oh, by the way, you know, the mobile serviceman, he'll be with you in 20 minutes. Guy got there in 10, right? Took us to the closest city, Barry, got the tire replaced, back home. So I think end to end, that was about maybe 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just you went from impressive. You're in trouble, and I think it's a good kind of turnaround story.
I find often those times of great delight is where expectations and reality, there's a positive mismatch. The reality, you're in a situation where you're thinking, oh, this is dreadful, but the reality is fantastic. And I think about your example with your ice cream maker. That was a situation which was a poor experience, but it could have been made incredibly better if they'd realised what had happened. They'd couriered it's expensive, but couriered the ice cream maker back to a place that's more convenient, even sent it back to your home, or even communicated with you earlier. There's many points where success can be snatched from the jaws of disaster.
Yes, I like that term.
And that's the thing. I think when you really feel that sense of delight, you think, oh, that was...
Yeah. I think that was for today. Pete, thank you very much for joining.
Pleasure.
Dwayne, thanks for co-hosting.
Happy to be here.
And thanks everybody for joining us in Amazon Studios. Goodbye.